Hi everyone, my name is John Conway and I am a functional specialist with the front office transformation team here at PwC Canada. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce you all to the Excess Soil Registry and to run through a training session dedicated to the RDSD notice filing type. Before we start, I wanted to point out that as each of these training sessions are designed to stand alone, for those of you who have attended or viewed the recording of the last training sessions, there may be some overlaps of the common materials or even concepts within the registry itself. That being said, here's a brief overview of our session today. I will quickly lay out what you can expect from our training videos before going through an overview of an RDSD filing. I will then open up the registry itself and walk through how to complete the RDSD filing from start to finish. After the demonstration, I will explain how you may access further training resources and how to contact RPRA should you have any questions which have not been answered during this session. To set some expectations for these sessions, we will be showcasing the technical features of the registry as it exists today, and we will go through the functionality that has been built. We will not be going into the legal requirements of the regulation itself, nor its interpretation or its enforcement. As I said, I'll do a brief overview of the topics by using this slide deck, and then I will do a live demonstration of an RDSD filing scenario. I would highly encourage everyone to review the training materials that RPRA has made available on their website. The link is available here. And at the end of this presentation, I have included links to other training videos that have been previously recorded. Of course, then any future questions can be directed to RPRA directly. In today's session, we're going to do a deep dive into an RDSD notice filing. I will show you how to initiate the filing from the Registry homepage, explain how to share the filing with a third party if you so choose to, and then walk through the entire notice filing itself from start to finish. We will make an initial submission of the filing, then return to update it, and make the final submission. Finally, I will show you how you can download PDF summaries of the filing and the invoices that are generated after selecting a payment method. For the benefit of those of you who may have missed or not have seen the last training sessions yet, I wanted to provide this brief overview of the Excess Soil Registry. For the Excess Soil program specifically, there are 3 portals that make up the registry. First, the registry for industry users. This is where the industry users can log in with their account details to complete excess soil filings and meet their compliance requirements. And this is what I will show shortly. Secondly, the Public Soils Registry. This is where certain details associated with registry filings will be shared for public access. The public has the ability to access this portal without any login or any registration required. Finally, the third portal is the Ministry portal. Information included in excess soil notice filings is shared with the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks in order for them to manage their compliance and their policy efforts. In order to make the filing today, I will be representing an industry user and utilizing the Registry portal. Industry users can log in or create an account by accessing the registry from registry.rpra.ca and then clicking through to the Excess Soil program. How to actually create an account and access the Soils program was covered in a previous session, so we will not be covering that again today. However, I have provided a link to that session at the end of this presentation, and those training materials, as I suggested, can be accessed from the RPRA website. There are actually 3 types of filings that can be completed via the Registry portal, and of course today we are focusing on the RDSD filing specifically. An RDSD is the acronym for a Residential Development Soil Depot, and as defined here is a soil bank storage site that is temporarily operated for the purpose of managing excess soil that will ultimately be transported to a reuse site. Then this slide explains the life cycle that each of the filing types will go through. When a filing is first initiated, it should be considered to be in progress. Another way to think about this is as a draft filing. At the in progress stage, the filing could be incomplete, and so it will not actually be visible on the public portal, and no fees are required. It's important to note that filing data is visible to MECP on the Ministry portal at all statuses, including at in progress, before that submission has actually been made. A filing will remain at this in progress stage until it is submitted, and a filing cannot be submitted until all of the required data has been entered, a completed declaration document has been uploaded, and payment has been arranged for any applicable fees. It's only at this point that the submission status will change to initial submission. Filings with the initial submission status become immediately visible on the public portal. Should a user come back to an initial submission and make any changes to any of the data within the filing, the submission status will change to updated submission to reflect that a change was made. This is an important step in keeping the data up to date, and there is no fee in order to update a notice filing at this stage. The updated data will be reflected immediately on the filing that is visible on both the public and the ministry portals. Then, in order to progress from an initial submission or an updated submission to the final submission, all of the required information for the filing must be entered, including a signed final submission declaration and a final fee payment, if applicable, must be arranged for. Once that final submission has been made, the data can no longer be updated, and all of the information on the filing, except for any payment information, will be visible on the public and ministry portals. So a quick note on fees at this point. The fees that you will see when I walk through the filing live are there for demonstration purposes and to show the functionality of the submission process only. Each type of filing requires the details for different types of contacts. There are 4 types of contacts associated with an RDSD filing. Of those 4 types, the filing must be initiated by either an owner, an operator, or an authorized person. An owner is defined as the owner of the RDSD site, and an operator is the person who has charge, management, or control of the site. Both of these contact details are required to be entered regardless of who actually initiated the notice. An authorized person is defined as the person authorized by the owner or operator to file the notice on their behalf. Although an authorized person must have a registry account with contact details in order to access the registry and initiate or submit the filing, their contact information is not actually required for an RDSD filing and are not gathered during the notice preparation itself. Then finally, the contact details of a site contact, as defined here as an authorized person on site who can be contacted, are also required for an RDSD filing. So now we can look specifically at the journey that we will go on in order to complete the RDSD notice filing. Our first step when initiating a filing is to go through the pre-screening questions in order to determine our eligibility or requirement to actually make the notice filing. Next, we will select the role that we are playing in the RDSD notice filing, and then we have an optional step of assigning notice access to another company in order to complete the filing on our behalf. We then get into entering the details of the RDSD operation as required by the regulation itself. We will enter in the contact details for each contact that is required to be listed, details about the site itself, and of course details of the excess soil amounts associated. We can then move on to review all of the data that we have entered so far, and only once we are content with the data that has been entered will we make a submission. The initial submission is made by paying an initial fee if it is applicable, or simply by clicking submit if no fee is required. When the project is completed, we are required to return to the registry to make the final submission. At this stage, we will confirm the date of the RDSD site closure, and we can make a final submission by paying a final fee if it's applicable, or again, simply by clicking on submit if no fee is required. Because this presentation will be available as a referenceable material, this slide goes into a bit more detail as to what is required in each of these sections. So I will cover this fairly quickly in the video because I will be demonstrating each of these points during the demonstration of the registry itself in a second. Within a filing, you will see chevrons like these, which are used to mark out each section of requirements. These chevrons provide a handy reference as you progress through a filing and are also used for general navigation. For example, should you need to return to edit the details of the operator associated with the filing, you can access the contact details section directly from the review or the summary page. Lastly, before we jump into the demonstration itself, we have constructed a scenario that we will be playing out. Soil developers and Residential Inc. have purchased and own adjacent properties. Soil developers have asked Residential Inc. if they can store excess soil from their own development project on land owned by Residential Inc., as that project is not anticipated to commence until late 2022. Residential Inc. has agreed to those terms but has several conditions, namely that Residential Inc. will manage and operate the site, and they have authorized a representative from Stephen Associates to complete all notices on their behalf. Stephen Associates will also ensure that they have all permits, such as instrument details, from those respective issuing authorities, and they will provide notice access to a representative from soil developers so that they can have visibility into the progress of the filing. Effective today, soil developers will start moving soil from their properties. However, before Residential Inc. can receive that soil, Stephen Associates must create an account and initiate an RDSD filing. So now that we've set the scene for the filing, I will open up another screen to show the Registry homepage. We're starting on the Excess Soil Registry homepage. As you can see, I'm logged into my account as Kevin Quartz, and my company name, Stephen Associates, is indicated here. On this page, you will be able to see a list of filings that you have already created and any filings that were shared with you. You can click on each of the column headings to sort your list of filings. Those filings that have been shared with you by another company or that you have shared with another company will have a check mark in the Shared Access column. The actions in this column that are available to you depend on the status of that submission. So those filings that are in progress will show Continue as an action. Those that are at an initial submission stage will show Update or Finalize. And those that are at the final submission stage will only show View, as that is the only action available to you once the submission has been completed. In order to actually initiate a new notice filing, we can click on the Initiate New Notice button, and this is the same process for all of our filing types. After clicking on Proceed on the prompt, we are brought to the Select Notice Filing Type page. On this screen, we can choose which filing type we would like to initiate. For the purposes of this demo, I will click on this RDSD notice, but you can refer to our previous training session videos on how to complete the project area and a reuse site notice. When we start any of our notice filings, we are met with one or several pre-screening questions, and that depends on the filing type that has been selected. These pre-screening questions are designed to ensure that we meet the criteria or the eligibility to initiate a filing. For an RDSD notice filing specifically, we are advised to review 4 questions. Once I'm comfortable with my answers, I can proceed by certifying that the answer is true and correct, and then I'm clicking on Next. If my answer choices mean that I do not meet the criteria to file, then I am instructed to visit the RPRA Excess Soil webpage for more information. Alternatively, I can select another notice type by clicking on Continue, or click on Cancel to go back to the dashboard. So if we go through this one more time and select the correct answers this time, check the certification box, and I can click on Next to proceed. The next part of the initiation process is to select our role. An RDSD notice filing can only be initiated by the owner, an operator, or by an authorized person. I'd also like to show that these information icons are available throughout the registry to provide extra guidance for a particular question. If I click on these information icons, I can see the definitions for both the operator and the authorized person. As we just discussed, the operator is defined as the person having charge, management, or control of a site. And the authorized person is someone authorized by the project leader, owner, or operator of a site to complete the notice and pay fees on their behalf. As you can see, the gray Next button down here. This indicates that I do need to complete information on this page in order to be able to proceed. There is also some conditional logic associated with this role selection, which means that I can select my role as an owner, or an operator, or an authorized person individually. Or I can indicate that I am both the owner and the operator. However, if I select that I am the authorized person, I cannot also be an owner or an operator. Additionally, as you may have noticed, if I select that I am an authorized person, I must certify my responsibility to file the notice and pay any applicable fees on behalf of the owner or operator. So for the purposes of this demo, I am representing Kevin Quartz from Stephen Associates as the authorized person. At this point, we have initiated our notice. This means that we are provided with a notice ID and that our progress will be saved as we proceed. If for any reason we leave the filing, we can return to this specific filing by looking for the notice ID on the dashboard. And I can return to the dashboard at any point in the filing process by clicking on the Back to Dashboard button on the top left. You will also notice that we are presented with 5 chevrons at the top of the page. Each of these chevrons, they represent a section of the filing and also show our progress so far. This section is called Notice Access. So although providing notice access to another company was covered in our first training session, I will go through a brief reminder of the functionality here. So by clicking on Manage Notice Access, I can choose to provide access to all of the registered users at another company to edit or complete most of this filing on my behalf. In our scenario, we would like to assign notice access to Jenny Toole at Swell Developers so that they have insight into the progress of the filing. I simply need to click on the Add Company and then search for the company I'd like to provide access to. Once I've selected my company, I can then identify who is the contact person at that company that I would like to assign to this filing. As I change the contact person, the contact email address changes as well. So I will select Jenny. So you can see that Jenny's email address has been populated here. Once I'm comfortable with that selection, I can check on the Access to this filing checkbox, which is selected as a default. I can certify the acknowledgement and grant access to a company, and then click on Save. So you'll now see that this page has been updated to show the details of the company that's been provided access to this specific filing. And I can hover over the View link to see further details. See, I've got the details of Swell Developers and my associated contact, Jenny Toole. To revoke access to the registry, I just click on Manage Notice Access, uncheck on this box, certify once more, and click on Save. However, for the purposes of this demonstration, we do wish to provide access to Jenny. So one last reminder on this page is that this is an optional step. It is not required to assign notice access to another company in order to continue with the filing. And then also that any company that you provide notice access to, they will be able to complete most parts of a filing, but they cannot view or update this notice access page themselves. They also cannot actually make a submission, and they cannot view any fee payments or financial information. So I'm going to click through to the next page by clicking on the Save and Next button. So we are now on the second chevron of the filing, Contact Details. The regulation requires the details of at least 3 types of contacts associated with an RDSD filing. Those 3 contacts are the owner, the operator, and the site contact. Now each of those contacts, they could be the same person or a combination of the same person and new individuals. On this first page of the Contact Details section, we are asked to enter in the details of the owner. This is also a good opportunity for me to show what happens if you try and move forwards with a page on the registry without filling in all of the required information. As you can see, all of the required fields that we did not enter any information in for have been marked in red with an error message below it. So I'm going to start entering in the details of our first owner from Residential Inc. Next, I want to draw your attention to this particular checkbox. The owner is also the contact for this site. If this box is ticked on this page or on any of the following contact pages, then we will not be asked to re-enter in the details for site contact. So I'm going to leave unchecked for the purposes of this demo because our site contact is our consultant, Kevin Quartz, and that's the person who I'm currently logged in as. So I've finished entering in details for our owner, Sharon Scott. And then once I'm happy with the owner contact details page, I can click on Save and Next. Our second page looks very similar, but this page is asking for the contact information of the operator. As our operator is also Sharon Scott from Residential Inc., I will enter in her details once more. And then once more, once I'm happy with the information that I have entered, I can click on Save and Next. Because we did not check that site contact box on any of the previous contact pages, this is the page where we are asked to enter in the details of a site contact. So if I had selected that checkbox on a previous page, this page would not show, and the other contact roles details would be registered as a site contact as well. So here's where I can enter in the details of Kevin Quartz. So remember that although I had declared my role as an authorized person on this filing, I am still required to manually write in my details into this page if I am operating as a site contact for this RDSD. The final page under the contact details chevron is another optional page, and this one gives me the ability to add additional owners or additional operators to my filing. In order to add these additional contacts, I can click on the Add Additional Contacts button, which will open up a pop-up for me. As you can see, I can select which additional contact type I am adding by checking these checkboxes here. I can choose to add in an additional owner, an additional operator, or somebody that is in both roles. So for our scenario today, although I do not have any additional contact details to enter, I will very quickly show what this process would look like if we did. So now that I've finished entering in all of those details, I've clicked on Add, and you can see that their details have been added to this table here, and their contact type has been selected as additional owner and additional operator. Now, as sometimes the details which are entered in are longer than the space on the table, you can hover over one of the records and see the full information pop up for you. You will also notice that on this table, I now have two new options available to me. I can either update or I can remove this particular record. So I can choose to update it if I wanted to correct something within the information. For example, if I had made a spelling mistake or needed to change an email address. If I click on Save, then you can see that that record has been updated. I can also choose to remove the additional contact entirely by clicking on the Remove button. And now you see once more, we're met with no results. So now that we're happy with this additional owners or operators page, I can click on Save and Next to progress to the next section of the filing. We're now on the Site Details section. The first page of the Site Details chevron, this is where we can gather all of the required information about the site itself. Each RDSD site filing, and I can click on Save and Next to show you, each RDSD site filing must be assigned a site name, a community or a municipality, and the geographical coordinates for the site. Further, I'm required to enter in either the street address for the site, if it is known, or to enter in a legal description of the site location. The legal description itself could include applicable pins, encumbrances, easements, or any other location references. So I do have some pre-prepared data that I can enter in here. So we'll assume that I do not know the municipal address and we'll just enter in a legal description or enter information into the legal description field. So I've included a PIN and location references. So a quick note about latitude and longitude. If you do not know or yet have a record of the latitude and longitude of a property, then you can use Google Maps to get this information quite easily. So we'll just demonstrate very quickly how you can get latitude and longitude from Google Maps. Once you have opened up your Google Maps, you can right-click anywhere on the screen, and then you see the top result is your latitude and longitude. If you click on that once, then your information has been copied to the clipboard and can be pasted into the filing itself. So now that I'm back on my filing, I have that information on my clipboard, and I can paste in the information straight from Google Maps here, like so. So once I'm happy with all of the information on this page, I can click on Save and Next to progress again. Similar to that functionality that we have seen in other parts of the registry, this page allows us to add, update, or remove multiple site instruments that are associated with my RDSD site. To add a new instrument, I click on the Add Instrument button. The options on this page will adjust depending on the instrument type selections that I make. So as an example, should I select that my instrument type is a City of Toronto Act bylaw permit, the Issuing Authority box will appear, and I can select Toronto City of. Alternatively, should I select a Municipal Act bylaw permit, you can see that the list of options available to me as an issuing authority is much longer. If I was to select Other as an option, you'll see that I'm prompted to add in a written description of the other instrument type and a written description of the other issuing authority. For the purposes of this demonstration, I shall add in two different instruments. The first one is a City of Toronto Act bylaw permit, so I shall select City of Toronto. And this one has been issued to Sharon Scott. The instrument issue date I can select as the 1st of October 2021, and then I click on Add to add that record. So as you can see, the instrument has now been added to the table, and I can update or remove this entry as is required. I can also add the next entry in exactly the same way. Then once more, when we are happy with the details on this page, we can progress by clicking on Save and Next. The final page under the soil details section is the soil details themselves. Now all three of these fields are required fields. The first of these fields is a date select field, and that is when did or will you start storing excess soil. So as per our scenario, that is today's date. Secondly, then we are asked for the amount of excess soil stored as of January 1st, 2022. If I click on the information icon again, you can see that what this field is asking for is what is the inventory amount of excess soil stored on site as of January 1st, 2022. As work is beginning today in our scenario, we can enter in the amount of excess soil that will be stored on site by January 1st. So we would enter something like 5,000 here. Then finally, the maximum amount of excess soil that will be stored on site at any one time. If I was to put in an entry like 15,000 and try and click and proceed to the next page, you'll see that I'm prompted as a reminder that the maximum amount of excess soil stored at any one time cannot exceed 10,000 cubic meters. So for this example, I can put in 9,000. As you can see from the chevrons at the top, this is now our review page. On the review page, you can see all of the information that has been added to your filing, and you have the opportunity to jump back to any section to edit your inputs. For example, should I wish to change the information under the soil details, I can click on edit, and then that would take me back to that page. So maybe my maximum amount of excess soil stored is actually 9,500. If I click on save and next again, I'll be brought back to the review page. By default, if your submission is still in progress, then you will be brought back to this page whenever you access the filing from your dashboard. So I can show leaving a filing and then returning to this review screen. First of all, I take a note of our notice ID number, which is number 55. I can click on back to the dashboard. And then as you can see, my notice ID number 55 is here. We have a check mark in the shared access column as we have shared access to our Swell developers. And then I can click on continue. When I click on continue, I'm brought back to the review page. So now that we're happy with the information that has been entered, I can click on next. And this takes us to the summary page. On the summary page, again, you can see all of the details that you've entered for your filing. And also you can follow the steps on the right-hand side in order to make a submission. As with the review page, each section of the filing is with its own white box and has a green check mark at the top left to show that all of the required information has been entered into that section. Again, as with the review page, you can use the edit button to jump back to that section to make any changes. On the right-hand side, we have several new widgets that are available to us. The top widget shows our submission status, which is currently in progress. The second widget is actually showing us how to proceed with making the initial submission. And then finally, we have the option to download our notice as a PDF here. The download PDF function allows you to save the full details of all of the data that was entered into your filing as a PDF document. From here, you can download it to your computer or you can print it out. Back on our summary page, I can follow the steps in order to make an initial submission on the right-hand side here. So in order to make that initial submission, there are a few steps that I need to take, and I will not be able to progress to making the submission until I've completed all of the required steps. That includes completing all of the sections of the filing. So I know this has been completed as I have the green check mark next to each section. And then my next step is to upload my signed declaration form here. As I may not have a copy of the declaration form already saved on my computer, I can download the fillable template here. And this will download a PDF to my computer. Once that's completed and signed, I can upload the declaration to my filing by clicking on the upload button. I select the file that I wish to upload and click on open. I'm shown a success message to show that the file has been uploaded successfully, and I can download a copy of that the declaration, the completed declaration, by clicking here. I can also remove this file, or I can replace it with a different version if I would like. So now that the declaration has been uploaded, you can see that the applicable fee has been generated, and I can progress my filing by selecting a payment method. The available payment methods include a bank withdrawal, credit card, an EDI payment method, a check, or an electronic bill payment. As you select an option, the applicable payment instructions will update. So whereas you can provide instructions online when choosing a bank withdrawal or a credit card, selecting one of the other three options, you can still submit your filing, but you will receive a follow-up email on how to actually submit that payment. So once we've made our payment selection, we can follow the steps or we can click on the submit button. So once that submission has been made, you will see a confirmation message here with instructions on how to update the submission to a final submission in the future. The user who makes a submission and also the account admin for that user's company will receive a confirmation email shortly. So also note on this page that the submission status has been updated to initial submission. And then further down the page, you'll see confirmation of the payment method that was used, the payment method amount, and you can also download an invoice associated with the initial submission. So it's important to note that now that the submission is at that initial submission stage, the information as discussed earlier in this session is now visible to the public. Our understanding is that the final submission of a notice filing may be made weeks, if not months or years down the line. And so to recreate that very real process, I will go back to the dashboard page and replicate coming back to this filing in the future. Here's my filing number 55. And as you can see, now the status has been updated to initial submission. My actions are to either update or finalize. So I click on the update or finalize button and I'm brought back to the summary page. But what is different this time is that the submission widgets on the right-hand side have been updated to require additional information in order to make a final submission. As you can see, I'm being prompted to enter in the date of the Soil Depot site closure, and the final submission should only be made after the site has closed. I cannot make any other submission steps until the answer to this question has been saved. So I will enter June 30th, 2022. I click on Save. So once I save that information, I can now upload my final submission declaration. As before, I can download a declaration template if I do not have one yet, and then I can upload the completed declaration again. So now that I have completed the final submission declaration, I can upload it here. As before, we are shown a success message to show that the file has been uploaded. I can remove or replace that declaration, or I can download a copy of the completed declaration that has been completed. So now that that step has been completed, my final step in order to submit a filing is to select the payment method and pay the associated fee. This process is going to be exactly the same as for the initial submission. I can select the payment method that best suits my needs, and then I can click on Submit. However, as you can see in this example, based upon my entries and the amount of excess soil actually deposited, there is no fee owing for my final submission. And so I will see a $0 amount here, and I can just click on Submit. Again, very similarly to the initial submission, the submission status is updated to the final submission on the top right, but there are a few other key differences on this page now. You'll notice that every section of our filing is marked with a padlock and can no longer be edited. And then the same with our final submission answers, and our declarations can no longer be replaced, they can only be downloaded. I can still download copies of my invoices for both an initial and a final submission, but of course, as there was no final submission payment made, I do not have a final submission invoice in this particular example. can also still click on the download PDF button to download a summary of my notice now that it is at the final submission stage. And so this concludes the live demonstration of the registry itself. And I'll just jump back to the deck to show a few more slides. As I promised earlier, I have included in this presentation materials the links to the other training sessions which have been previously conducted. I do highly recommend referring to these materials should you have a requirement to make any other filing type submissions, or if you're looking for details on how the registry account management and the public portals work. So this does conclude our training session today. However, for any other follow-up questions, please make sure to visit RPRA online at the address here, or contact their support team at registry@rpra.ca. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you found this session useful and informative, and that you have a great day.